Growing up, I was lucky enough to have a Nintendo, which is kind of weird for a bear, I get that, but I was only allowed to play games like Tetris or Solomon's Key. In case you don't know, Solomon's Key is this 80s puzzle game where you play as a sorcerer who can either make blocks or break them. Everything kind of one-hit kills you, and you have to work out how to unlock the door in each level to get through that door before time runs out. It was a weird game, but I still had fun, and I have fond memories of that Nintendo. But for years, that was my experience with gaming. Then, one Christmas in the 90s, everything changed. I got a Super Nintendo from Santa Claus that had a layaway sticker on it. The Super Nintendo is responsible for killing my belief in Santa, but I didn't care. The Super Nintendo introduced me to new characters, new games, and whole new worlds. I would save up money when I could to buy new games, and the first game that I bought on my own was Super Metroid. Since then, I've had the opportunity to play all the games in the 2D Metroid series. The original Metroid defined a genre of games, and Metroid 2 really only reiterated on that formula. It wasn't until Super Metroid that the genre became perfected for generations to come. After Super Metroid, Fusion again improved on a winning formula, this time taking the same feeling of isolation and exploration, but amping up the anxiety to new levels. They also introduced the X-Parasite and the terrifying SA-X, a fully powered version of Samus, hunting an underpowered version of the real Samus. But now, almost 2 minutes into this video, I'm ready to talk about Metroid Dread. I'll be honest, Super Metroid is one of my all-time favorite games. It created a need in me to find games like the 2D Metroid series. And I'm not just talking about Hollow Knight, but really, I'm talking about Hollow Knight. So while I was surprised by the announcement of Dread back in June 2021, I really didn't expect a lot from it. I had played the Prime series and I love those games. I'm waiting for Prime 4, just as well as Bayo 3 and Breath of the Wild 2. Geez, Nintendo, do something already. To my surprise, Metroid Dread is everything that was great about the original 2D games, and then some. They simply improved on almost every single aspect of the first 4 games. Movement is a total joy. The map guides you, but also allows for freedom of exploration. Most of the time spent exploring is tense, and enemies grow with you as you grow. The best boss fights are fun, and most of them are pretty memorable. For me, Metroid Dread is the new bar by which the entire genre of games should be measured. So here is where I have to say the rest of this video will contain spoilers for some parts of Metroid Dread. I won't go into the entire story here, but I will be talking about some mid-game encounters, as well as showing footage for late-stage gameplay from this point forward. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. The controls in Dread are great, and the movement is a lot of fun. Controlling Samus becomes second nature pretty quick, and the pixel-perfect precision makes that control all the better. Each time a new ability or item is gained, it fits into the existing control set so intuitively. Movement becomes an extension of the player's thought, and because of that, I feel like there are so many possibilities on how to approach problems and topple foes. The detailed movement is echoed in the animations. Samus has never looked so clean and responded so well to the controls. Everything from screw attacks to firing missiles, and even simply running into a wall, looks and feels fantastic. My personal favorite look and feel for a move is the new Flash Shift. I had so much fun with this addition. And then there's the Shine Spark ability. I have both loved and hated this ability since Super Metroid. The puzzles locked behind Shine Sparks are some of the most difficult parts of the series for me. But when you actually get that item, it makes you feel like you really did something. The last bits keeping me from 100% completion were 4 Shine Spark puzzles. While I saved them for the very last thing, they honestly weren't as bad as I expected them to be. It took me maybe about 5 to 10 minutes each to work out how to complete each puzzle and actually do it. There was a little bit of trial and error, and several near misses, but the detailed movement and control that the player has made the Shine Spark puzzles in Dread far more enjoyable and achievable than they ever were before. Now, the map in Dread is informative, but it doesn't beat you over the head with where to go. If you were watching this, you have probably seen a certain clip of a player getting lost near the beginning of Dread. Personally, I never had that problem. The map always seemed to drive me to certain checkpoints in the beginning, and then really opened up to allow for exploration once I was more comfortable. One obvious example is the entrance to Kraid's prison. The first time you come across that figure, it is so different than anything else you had seen before in the game. It is meant to stand out when you see it, and helps to anchor that location in a player's memory. So, after you get certain upgrades and abilities, you remember to go back and check that area out. Sometimes I would follow the map, and other times I would just go my own way. And that's another great quality of Dread, sequence breaking. This means anything from getting tiny item expansions early on to getting major abilities way before they're required. On my first playthrough, I got the crossbomb and the gravity suit earlier than intended. They were nice rewards for going out of my way to get around some roadblocks in the game. Sequence breaking is a great feeling, and is another reason why I've always felt like I was progressing. The game made me feel stronger, like I was blazing new paths and solving puzzles. It's a good feeling, and it's really one of the main draws of a Metroid game. But just because I usually felt like I knew where to go, it doesn't mean that I didn't struggle. Exploration in Dread is tense. Even when you know the path, you can still get tripped up along the way. Changes to areas you've already been, sudden environmental transformations, and surprise boss encounters can all knock you down. Usually, you get to take your time with exploration, but sometimes the game twists the environment to create this sense of panic and urgency that is intended to push the player forward, to create points of no return, and to drive exploration in unique and interesting ways. Another thing I really enjoyed were the environmental details. The environments themselves look great, and each area has unique and subtle bits of story sprinkled throughout them. Dread is a 2D game running on a platform that can more than handle it. Like the entrance to the Kraid boss fight, the environment is often sprinkled with little details calling back to either previous games or background events which foreshadow upcoming boss fights. An action as simple as turning on the lights in an area could activate that dormant enemy that you passed by earlier. And surely this frightening beast being zapped with lasers in the background isn't going to get up and zap Samus with lasers itself later on. Speaking of bosses, when you first encounter them, most are a lot of fun. There are a fair share of them which are just amped up copies of previous fights, but there are also a lot of standout encounters which had me on the edge of my seat. And that brings me to the E.M.M.I. encounters. While they were fun for me, they did not inspire that same anxiety and fear that the SAX had in Metroid Fusion. The game's name implies that there should be a sense of, well, dread, and that was something I never really got. I have seen some people complain about the E.M.M.I.s, and I don't think that those sections were bad personally, but I felt that they were more a combination of action platforming and stealth than anything I would normally associate with a Metroid game. Now I love me some Metal Gear Solid, but skirting around an invincible Juggernaut robot didn't really inspire that sense of dread for me. A couple of other notable points of interest. It should come as no surprise, but the visual and particle effects were top-notch for any Metroid game. I thought the music was good, but not as memorable as it had been in previous games for some reason, although the Corpius boss encounter and battle themes are quite excellent. I also liked the way they portrayed Samus's physical characteristics and overall character design. I totally dig the strong personality she exudes throughout the game, and just absolutely love the look of the new Varia suit. It is just so pretty. I mean, come on, just look at it. I didn't have a problem with the choice to exclude Ridley from this game. Honestly, between Kraid's chunky glory and Ravenbeak's self-righteous flapping, I didn't even really think of Ridley this go around. And really, Samus's reaction on seeing Kraid again is just priceless. Overall, I'm really impressed with the final product. Dread hits a lot of high notes for me, and is a game I've gone back to several times over the past few months. Now, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you agree with what I've said, and if you have any other major points that I may have missed. Personally, I felt Dread was lovingly crafted and a whole lot of fun to play. I just hope we don't have to wait 20 years for the next installment.